A Beacon in the Dark by Nohai Ijiachi. Chapter 7. Legacy.
I will see you in a bit, young Midoriya,
All Might says, patting his head one last time. It almost feels like Mom's pats. Maybe she was rubbing some of her mannerism off on All Might, considering how much time the man has spent at their house in these months. Not that he'd complain. His eyes and nose stings for how much he cried. He tries not to think about what he felt, fresh tears threatening to come up at the mere thought. It had been horrible, feeling All Might's light shrink, and a piece of it detaching, wiggling and thrashing like an animal in pain for a few seconds before dissolving into dust, to never come back again. He doesn't want to feel that happen ever again. He sniffles, All Might's light guided away by Cementos Sensei, a blurry point in the radius of his quirk, when something soft touches his thigh. "Midoriya, it's Principal Nezu," the little voice says. "Oh, hello, sir." Izuku rasps out, his voice raw against his throat. He has the distinct impression that the small principal is scanning him to the depth of his soul. "How hurt are you?" he asks. "My arm's broken and I have this thing on my cheek, but aside from that, I'm okay." He's dead tired on his feet too, but that's beside the point. "I see. You should go to the infirmary right away then. We are rounding all the students up to make sure no one is missing, but of course medical attention comes first. I will count you in." Izuku doesn't want anything more than to let recovery girl put the fire that's burning in his arm out, but he realizes the roaring need to make sure that all his classmates are okay to feel their lights near vastly supersedes his need to be healed. "No," he replies. "No, I can wait. I want to see the others first." "Are you sure?" "Yes." The principal sighs in a way that suggests he already knew Izuku would say that. "This way, then." As they walk closer to the little cluster of lights, Izuku is immediately relieved to see that everyone is there, safe and sound, after a rapid head count. He knew that Kachan, Todoroki, and Kirishima were safe, of course, but the others... "Midoriya! Are you okay?" Kirishima exclaims, his voice a little ragged, running in his direction after having noticed him get closer. "You gave me such a scare, man! I thought you were done for!" "Midoriya!" Asui had joined him too, speaking before he could answer. "I saw you fighting that man. You were very brave." "It was nothing," he stammers, feeling his cheek rendered in embarrassment. "Midoriya!" Uraraka pretty much made a mad dash for them as soon as she heard his name. She sounds like she's been crying. "Oh my god, are you..." A hiccup. "So you told us what happened? You got dragged right in the middle of that? I don't know how you do any of this." She's rambling, probably gesticulating, going by the movements of her light. "Do what?" Izuku replies, perplexed. "This!" she answers, exaggerated, pointing at his entire being. "If I had been in your place, I don't think I would have been capable of moving a single step. I was frozen with fear up here, and you fought the boss of the villains?" "Oh. I think that is quite enough," Principal Nezu intervenes. He almost sounds amused. "I understand you are happy to see your classmate, but we need to count you up and then send Midoriya to the infirmary." "Of course, sir," Uraraka stammers. As they make their way to the rest of the class, she puts a hand on his shoulder gently. "I'm so glad you are okay, Izuku," she whispers. She doesn't comment on the fact she used his name to shut to blurt out a single word, the rest of the class welcoming him with similar relieved calls. As he's surrounded by his classmates, no, by his friends, all equally happy to see him in one piece, the heavy nut in his chest that had taken place there from the very moment he got warped away from his class finally releases. Maybe things will be okay. Recovery girl grumbles a bit as she patches him up with a wet kiss, but doesn't add much more.
"Considering the situation, I won't scold you two. This time."
All Might had already been there when Izuku arrived lying on one of the cots.
"What ailed you?"
he asked upon Izuku entering, curious. Izuku tried to shrug before remembering he had a broken arm and is in pain. I just wanted to make sure the others were okay, he said, not elaborating much more. All Might had made a knowing murmuring,
I'm very glad your classmates are all fine then.
as Recovery Girl guided Izuku to one of the cots and had started to work on him. She's putting his arm in a light cast now, hanging it from his neck.
You had multiple fractures. The bones are repaired, but I recommend to keep the cast at least a couple of days to give your arm time to rest. How does your cheek feel?
Izuku carefully palmed at his face with his free hand. The skin was back there. It felt tender and new. As his fingertips passed on his cheek, he noticed a little irregularity, something slightly bumpy right under his eye. It doesn't hurt, he says, poking curiously at himself.
It's scarred a little,
Recovery Girl replied, noticing his gesture.
nothing big, but that's what you have to live with when you are a stubborn, reckless boy like you.
Didn't you say you wouldn't scold us this time?
All Might intervened, a smile in his voice.
Just saying the truth.
That gets a laugh out of Izuku, that finally relaxes against the pillow. His arm feels delicate, throbbing, as if it's threatening to break all over again, but it's much of an improvement over the constant pain of broken bones. Oh, he says after some seconds of silence, feeling horrible. The thought had shaken him out of his relaxed, sleepy state. How could he forget that? Aizawa-sensei, is he okay?
He had more broken bones than you,
Recovery Girl replies, her voice low.
His orbital socket was pretty much turned to dust. We won't know if that will affect his eyesight until he wakes up, but he's out of danger and will make a full recovery in due time.
Izuku should be happy that Sensei is at least still alive. But he knows his face is betraying his feelings when he feels All Might's eyes pointedly boring into him. It's my fault, he murmurs before All Might could even ask. I dragged him right to that thing and I couldn't help him in any way.
Young Midoriya, you cannot possibly blame yourself for this.
All Might's voice is steel, but there's a note of kindness into it.
Aizawa is a pro hero before being your teacher. And he knows what he does, and he did what he thought was right. I also think he did the right thing. I would have done the same in his place.
In front of Izuku's silence, he continues.
What do you think he should have done? Leave you there all alone? My boy, you are his student. Aizawa would gladly give his life away if it meant protecting you. So would I.
Izuku flinches as if All Might had hit him with one of his 300% punches. I don't want anyone to give their life away for me. All Might is silent for a few seconds.
So you would die for others, gladly. But you don't want others to do the same for you. That's very selfish, my boy.
He then says in low, quiet voice. His tone was betraying a sad smile on his face. Izuku doesn't reply, angrily wiping the tears away with his right wrist. A pregnant silence falls on them for a good minute, before there's a knock at the door.
Oh, right on time.
All Might sounds a bit rough, the sheets crinkling on him as he drags himself into sitting position.
Young Midoriya, this is Tsukauchi Nawasa, a dear friend of mine and a police officer. He knows my secret,
he says, answering to Izuku's unasked question. Oh, so this is the boy you told me about. The man, Tsukauchi, says in a cheery tone. He approaches Izuku's cat. It's nice to meet you, Midoriya. Oh, same, Izuku replies, offering his hand, and as he imagined he would, Tsukauchi takes it in a little shake. Sadly, I'm not here just for a visit. I will need both your statements regarding this incident, if it's regrettable that I must interrupt your rest. That's all right, Izuku replies, crossing his legs on the cot and sitting a bit straighter. Surely beats feeling terrible about himself and Aizawa-sensei.
I think you should begin with young Midoriya. He'd been there from the start. I'm also curious to know the whole story myself, if I have to be honest.
All Might says as Tsukauchi sits in front of Izuku on All Might's cot, fishing something out of his coat to presumably write down Izuku's statement. Oh, okay, Izuku says, taking a moment to collect his thoughts. Well, we were right at the entrance of the USJ. 13 was explaining to us something. I was a bit distracted. I noticed,
Tsukauchi knows the way your quirk works, my boy. Go on.
All Might says, rightly interpreting his hesitation. Oh, perfect. Well, I wasn't really listening because there was something weird. Aizawa Sensei had told us it would be just us of Class 1A and the teachers at the training grounds, but I felt that inside the USJ there were more people. I estimated around 30 or 40.
Were they just sitting there? Tsukauchi asked, sounding perplexed.
I don't think they were visible to, normalize.
Izuku scratches at his cheek, unsure.
In retrospect, I think they were hiding in a portal. The way I felt them, it was like there was a deep fog making their lights very blurry.
A portal?
Yes, one of them could open portals all over the place, but I'll get to that in a minute. Sorry.
There's a smile in Tsukauchi's voice. No problem. Tell us in your own words.
Okay, well, I told Aizawa Sensei about what I felt, and he immediately realized the danger, telling us to go back to the bus and alert the school. But the man with the portals, I think his name was Kurogiri, he was listening in because he immediately teleported me away from the class after I told them about the lights.
All Might's light spiked up in fear before calming it down, a quiet rage seeping through.
I don't know what happened to the class next. I can only imagine Kurogiri had also teleported them away at some point, since I noticed they were scattered all over, later. Anyhow, Kurogiri had teleported me nearby the boss of the villains.
The man with the hands, All Might murmured to himself.
Hands?
Izuku blinked, perplexed.
Well, I heard his name too. It was Shigaraki Tomura.
At that, Tsukauchi made a little gasp of surprise, immediately scribbling in a frantic manner. This is incredibly useful information, Midoriya. You're helping us immensely. Please go on. And Izuku did, describing all he could remember, down to every single detail. How Shigaraki asked after All Might, how Aizawa Sensei came to his aid, of the not light of Shigaraki and his quirk, the way he managed to push Aizawa Sensei away from Shigaraki's hand, getting that wound on his cheek. How he noticed the delay in Kurogiri's portals and the failed attempt to run away with Sensei after the Nomu stopped them. He told of the Nomu's strange cluster of lights, and of how Sensei tried to give him a chance to run, and, swallowing his pride, admitting how he froze in fear, how Aizawa Sensei saved his life taking a hit, and that had finally pushed Izuku to fight Shigaraki. You fought him? At that point, All Might interrupted, his voice strangled.
I didn't know what to do!
Izuku replies, nervously playing with the sheet covering his gut.
He told you to, remember?
When he said, oh, he was talking about you. All Might let out, surprised. The plain-looking one, my ass, he added, grumbling. That dragged a surprised little laugh out of Izuku that shook his head a bit with a smile.
Anyhow, I was just buying time. Shigaraki, he was really angry after I punched him. I knew he'd come for me either way. He had even ordered Kurogiri not to intervene, that he wanted to kill me himself. And I didn't have it in me to leave Aizawa behind. I know it was stupid. It's not like I could have fought the three of them all on my own, so I just bid my time, trying to keep Shigaraki busy so he wouldn't order the Nomus to land the killing blow on Sensei.
What were you waiting for? Tsukauchi asked, his hand hovering on the notes he was writing.
All Might, of course.
Izuku ignored the surprised jump of his idol.
I knew he was coming, so I kept fighting. Shigaraki, he acted like an immature kid, growing more and more angry as he failed to get me. I kicked him to the floor at some point, and that made him snap. He ordered the Nomu to get me.
All Might made tiny, breathless, painful whine at that.
That's how I broke my arm. It, punched me really hard. I don't even know how far I flew after that hit.
Izuku squirms on his gut, uncomfortable.
If I had to be honest, I was almost glad. At least that thing was away from Aizawa Sensei.
Young Midoriya. Izuku flinched.
I'm sorry. Anyhow, well, you arrived right after.
He takes a deep breath, noticing how tense his shoulders were and forcing himself to relax.
You arrived. That's when I knew we had a chance,
he whispered. A deep silence covers them all after young Midoriya's last whisper. Toshinori doesn't even know what to do with this boy anymore. The expression he had seen on young Midoriya's face upon his arrival, that mix of anger and desperation, baring his teeth like an animal ready to fight, made much more sense now. He cannot believe the boy fought against that man, Shigaraki. His first reaction of freezing in fear had been more than understandable, but young Midoriya found it in himself to shake out of that and fight right back. Toshinori is starting to think his late sensei had somehow created a miracle from beyond the grave, putting this boy in his path. He cannot find any other explanation for the sheer stroke of luck of happening to meet young Midoriya in the underpass that fateful day of many months ago. Had he been even just a minute more late in running to the USJ, Toshinori doesn't even want to think about it, his stomach churning at the mental image of a young Midoriya battered and lifeless, that monstrous gnome looming over him. He was still here, in front of him, alive and well. That's what mattered.
I think I could take it from here,
he finally says as the boy seems to be either unwilling or incapable of going on.
If you think you can add more useful details, young Midoriya, feel free to interject.
The boy nodded, silent, and Tsukauchi turned to him as he started to add his side of the story. Young Midoriya doesn't intervene, only answering a couple of questions. Tsukauchi asks him directly to clarify, mostly just listening and nervously playing with his cat. Tsukauchi asked the boy for his contact, if he was willing, once he was done writing everything down. Young Midoriya had quietly given his phone number, then handing his phone to Tsukauchi to let him add his own contact to the address book. Thank you both for your time and patience. I'll leave you to rest now. Tsukauchi finally said, putting his hat on. Midoriya, I'm sure your teachers will appropriately scold you, but for what it's worth, I think you did very good.
Don't give him ideas,
Toshinori grunted, and that finally put a small smile on the boy's face. Tsukauchi chuckles. Thank you again. All this information will be of great help. Hopefully next time we will meet, it will be in less strange circumstances. I hope so too, Midoriya answers, his voice a bit tired but less tense. It's been nice to meet you, Mr. Tsukauchi. With one last smile and a wish of getting better soon, Tsukauchi leaves. Recovery Girl is nowhere to be seen, probably had left to give them some measure of privacy as they gave their statements. He watches the boy releasing a big sigh, sinking back in his pillow, eyes closed. Are you mad at me? He asks after a while, quietly.
I have very many feelings,
Toshinori answers, taking a few seconds.
And maybe I'm a bit angry, yes, but definitely not at you.
The boy just barely cracks his eyelids open, the dying light of the setting sun out the window creating a sheen of colors not unlike a nacre on a beach. On his unseeing eyes, Toshinori finds himself holding his breath. Mom will totally be mad, the boy says, closing his eyes again. That snaps him out of the little stupor he had fallen into. He sniffs.
I do not wish to lie to your mother, of course, but I think it'd be better if we give her a adulterated version of the facts for her peace of mind. Your call, my boy.
Young Midoriya seems to take a few instants to think before sighing tiredly. I agree. They don't speak after that. Soon enough, Toshinori hears the boy's breath going steady as he falls asleep. He takes a last long look at him before closing his eyes himself. Izuku is too tired to even activate his quirk at the moment. His world is dark and he's pretty sure he's flying. His body feels weightless, voices muffled around him. With a hum, he pushes his face to get something soft and comforting, feeling a gentle hand on his head as he falls back asleep again. When he wakes up, he's in his room. He can hear the birds chirping outside and, confused, his quirk still turned off, he palms at his nightstand, hitting the clock. It's 12:34, the clock cheerfully announces. That definitely shakes him out of his sleepy daze as he turns on his quirk. A splitting pain in his head urges him to turn it off again. He does so, accidentally tumbling off his bed. Izuku! The noise must have warned Mom, her voice coming closer. He sits on the floor, sheets tangled around his legs.
Honey, what are you doing?
My head! He whines, pain pulsing at his temples. He does not dare to turn his work on again. Mom, why didn't you wake me up? I'm super late for school. She chuckles.
Oh, honey, don't worry. After what happened yesterday, the direction decided to close the school for today. Take it easy, okay?
Izuku breathes a sigh of relief. He slowly makes his way up on his feet. It's good he can keep his quirk turned off for a bit. It's clear that the strain of the day prior had been enough for a while. He clearly needs to rest.
I was just putting lunch on the table. You must be hungry, she says. We'll be downstairs, okay?
Izuku nods, stifling a yawn. He hears Mom walking down as he palms at himself. He recognizes the shirt he has on, one of his most comfortable ones that he always uses to sleep. Mom must have put it on him when they had gotten him home at some point. He's in his boxers, though, so he finds his pajama pants propped on the chair at his desk and puts them on, with a little difficulty considering his left arm is still in Recovery Girl's cast. He makes his way downstairs. It's kind of weird after getting used to using his quirk continuously to be plunged in a world of total darkness again, but it's not like he didn't spend his entire life in his home. He really doesn't need it to move around. When he enters the kitchen, yawning again, a definitely not Mom's surprised chuckle welcomes him. He jumps, taken aback, before his mind connects the noise to a voice he's very familiar with. Then he remembers the shirt he uses to sleep is an old faded All Might shirt and blushes rapidly.
Very cute.
All Might says, amused.
I'm sorry I scared you. Do you have your quirk turned off?
Yes, Izuku replies, palming to find his chair and sit down, trying to will away the blush he feels burning on his cheeks.
That's interesting.
All Might says. Izuku is sure he's staring at him. What is? He asks, grateful for the distraction, taking attention away from his embarrassing choice of clothing.
Your eyes. They look different.
All Might hums thoughtfully.
I've never noticed.
Do they? Izuku asks, surprised.
Yes, Thank you, Miss Midoriya. The green is a different shade when you have your quirk on. It's brighter.
Huh. Mom doesn't say anything, putting the plate in front of him and then taking place at the table herself. She wishes them to enjoy their meal before casually starting.
So, Izuku, Mr. All Might told me what happened yesterday.
Izuku's mouth full of rice almost makes it out of his mouth. He's proud he manages to gulp it down.
I'm very glad you made it out with mostly minor injuries, but I can't deny I'm very worried about something like this happening again.
He has no idea what kind of version All Might have given her, so he doesn't comment. That last part of the sentence, anyway, seems more aimed at All Might himself rather than him. All Might sighs.
It is a very worrying prospect for all of us. Today, with the help of the police forces, the school is being searched thoroughly. I've been excused, seeing as I have to recover my strength myself. But I'm sure a highly accurate job is being done of it. I do not exclude the possibility the school will open again directly tomorrow.
They eat in silence for a while. A weird atmosphere has fallen on them, and while Izuku is definitely famished, he ends up pushing his rice around.
All Might,
he says after a while, you have something to tell me, don't you? He hears the man stop and put down his chopsticks, maybe crossing his fingers on the table.
I do,
he says,
but eat first.
Izuku obeys. After lunch, Miss Midoriya shushes them in the living room, citing the plates that need to be washed as an excuse to leave them alone. Toshinori told her everything already, while young Midoriya was still sleeping. He wanted her to be ready, and the woman had understandably reacted with fears and tears. It took her a while to steel herself, taking deep breaths.
I would be lying if I said the prospect doesn't terrify me, she said. But it's Izuku's decision. Whatever he will do, I will support him.
Toshinori nodded, not daring to put a comforting hand on her shoulder as he wished to do.
He did not deserve that after unloading so much on her.
Thank you for telling me,
she whispered after a long silence.
He watched young Midoriya expertly making his way towards his usual armchair, not a sign of hesitation, sitting with his legs crossed.
He looked so much younger than usual, hair mussed with sleep in his giant faded t-shirt. Toshinori's own face, smiling brightly, greeted him through the folds. There's nothing Toshinori wished more than to let this boy live his life, happy and carefree. But life had other plans, apparently.
I have something to tell you about my powers.
Toshinori finally started, the sounds of plates being washed in the distance.
It's going to be a long story.
Izuku listened intently. All Might told him so much Izuku had never imagined could be real. He told him of One for All, and of All for One. He told him a story that went ages back, long, long before Izuku had even been born. He explained how his incredible strength worked, and why he was so much weaker now. How he received that power from someone else. Izuku took it all in, wonder plain on his face. Once All Might finished narrating, a silence fell on them.
This is a lot,
Izuku finally says, his right hand on his chin.
Certainly explains quite a lot of things, but why are you telling me this?
All Might takes a long, deep breath before answering.
I wish for you to be the next wielder of One for All.
Toshinori watches as shock takes place on the boy's face, his mouth hanging open, eyes wide. Me? He asks, breathless. But His right hand makes some random movements as he searches for words. Why me? He finally asks, sounding as if he's about to faint.
Why is the sky blue?
Toshinori replies, sad humor in his voice.
My boy, this is a thought I've been harboring ever since we first met.
Young Midoriya closes his mouth, frowning, confused.
You have heart, and you firmly believe in what I also believe.
Toshinori continues,
that a hero is supposed to help and protect no matter what. You've shown exceptional abilities and bravery, even a bit too much of that.
He chuckles.
You've shown how hardworking you are and how smart you are and how much you care. You've shown me all the qualities I could possibly ask for.
He expected to see the boy blush, but instead his face goes dead serious, his hand slowly lowering and grabbing at his pants.
My only regret is that I have to unload this request on you so soon,
Toshinori says.
I wished to let you live a bit longer in peace, to give you the chance to grow and learn at your own pace. My intention was to ask this of you at your 3rd year, or even after graduation. But what happened yesterday showed me we cannot afford this luxury.
Young Midoriya's right hand goes back up to his face as he nervously pulls at his lower lip. His eyes are moving, he's clearly deep in thought. Toshinori gives him time before adding softly,
I've already told your mother what I was going to ask you this morning. She said that it's your decision, and she will support you no matter what. I want you to think about this, and I want you to know that if you decide to refuse, I will not hold it against you. I will still follow your growth, and I will still be proud of the person you are. Do not forget that.
Inko enters in the living room just as Izuku is making his way out, his face an unreadable mask. She sidesteps, watching him go up the stairs before entering in the room with a little worried frown. All Might is sitting on the couch, eyes closed. He looks like he just ran a marathon.
Is everything okay?
She asks, unsure.
He told me he needs some time to think.
All Might replies, opening his eyes.
It's the least I can give him.
She sighs, softly sitting by his side.
How do you think he took it?
It's hard to say.
All Might sits a bit straighter, pulling at one of his long tufts of blonde hair.
Young Midoriya's heart is usually right on his sleeve. This is the first time I could not tell what he was thinking.
She doesn't know how to reply, and then All Might chuckles.
That probably means he's growing up. It both makes me happy and sad. It's a weird feeling.
Inko feels a sad smile rising on her lips. That's how a parent feels. I can tell you from experience. She watches him flinch, turning a shocked expression to her, and then he relaxes.
I guess that makes sense,
He whispers. After a beat of silence, Inko gets up, rummaging in the furniture right under her TV. She takes one of their photo albums out, going back on the couch. She opens the album between them and starts showing him pictures. This is Izuku just after he was born. He was a loud crier. She laughs, showing him the picture of the baby clearly mid-scream, red in the face. All Might takes the picture with a smile. He listens and looks, picture after picture, nothing at their anecdotes, laughing at the particularly funny ones. Grateful. A little over an hour before Izuku comes back down the stairs, something under his arm. They watch him in silence, the open album still between them, pictures scattered all over the place. He moves with a little difficulty, putting the box on the coffee table just with his right arm and a huff. He opens the lid, leaving behind a handprint in the dust, fishing one of his old All Might toys from the box. "Holy stuff," he says, "from before my quirk. When I was a kid, I dreamt of being as strong as you." The toy is a bit faded by time, but the brilliant colors are still there. "A childish dream." Izuku laughs, mirthless. "What could someone as damaged as me could possibly do? There was no hope." All Might opens his mouth as if to say something, but Inko puts a hand on his shoulder. He falls silent. But everything changed," Izuku whispers. "I had no friends, and then I met Miki. I had no quirk, but then Ichiko-san found a way for me. I had no hope, but I met you." He takes a deep breath. "I understand," he says. I think I really understand now. What it means to be a hero, what it means to be you. And it's scary, but all these wonderful people that have changed my life for the better, I want to protect them. I want to protect them with all my strength." Slowly, Izuku puts the toy down on the box. His eyes are casted low, but then he looks up. He offers his right hand, palms up. "I accept." When All Might shuts up from his seat, covering the distance between he and Izuku in two strides, and squeezes Izuku in a tight hug, Ingo can't hold her tears anymore.
Thank you,
he whispers, his voice broken.
Thank you so much.
Izuku is lying in bed, belly up, his mind heavy and fuzzy, plagued by so many thoughts when he feels as if a jolt of electricity passed through his spine. One for All is part of him now.